Hey, Story Seekers! I don't know if I'm the only person this happens to, but when I finish the first book in a series, if it's really, really good, I often don't want to read the second book in the series, even if there's a massive cliffhanger at the end of book one. What madness is this? What craziness, you ask? Well, when we reach the end of a story that we've fallen in love with, there's a part of us that accepts the story, flaws and all, is some sort of version of perfection. If it sears to our soul in a deep-rooted way, we want to hold on to said perfection as long as possible, and the possibility that book two might shatter that perfection causes, at least for me, an unintentional pause in continuing with that story's timeline or the subsequent books in the series. It's why it took me 2 years, to read Well of Ascension after finishing Mistborn. And it took a second reading of Mistborn to convince me to read book two. And it's why I still haven't read books like Red Seas Under Red Skies despite loving the Lies of Locke I don't want what I felt at the end of book one to change. Second books don't have the benefit of doubt or the mystery and general allure that a brand new story offers. Instead, book twos have an unfortunate disadvantage in that they absolutely must do three things and must do these three things extremely well. Before we get into these things, note that I'll be mentioning several book twos as examples, but these will all be spoiler free. Okay, so first and foremost, book twos must live up to the original story. Live up to whatever emotional resonance was present at the culmination of book one. This, of course, assumes that book one was decently good, but let's face it, with the sheer riches in book options, if book one doesn't cut it, we're off to greener reading pastures. So, assuming that book one's characters and plot are worthy enough for us to want to continue reading, book two must make us feel all the things that we felt in book one, even if they are different things, if that makes sense. Like that sigh of epic relief at the conclusion of The Way of Kings, Words of Radiance has to generate similar feelings of epicness. The emotional impact in the final act of Mistborn? Well, The Well of Ascension must have equal emotional resonance, even if it has a slightly different feel to it. But book two cannot simply be a rehash of book one. Oh, no. This is the cardinal flaw. Wait, if there's a cardinal rule, can there be a cardinal flaw? It's the unforgivable curse, the unpardonable sin. It does not matter how fantastic book one was. Book two cannot cover the exact same plot beats or character journeys as book one. But somehow book two has to make us feel the same way that book one made us feel. It just can't do the exact same things to get there. Unless it does so with different worthy characters meant to compare or contrast book one, or an ironic plot meant to be a quasi-sentient analysis of book one. Not sure if I used the word sentient right there. But more or less, book two must be different. Subjectify that however you want. Number two, book two must advance the plot in some way, shape, or form. Theoretically, this should be the easiest step for book two to accomplish. If the characters are physically in this physical spot, they should physically be further along in a physical sense at the end of book two. Or they stay in the same spot and change physically, or change emotionally, or change relationally, or involve politicking of some sort. Simply put, progress must be made. In the Two Towers, Frodo and Sam literally move closer to Mordor. In Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, the characters stay in Hogwarts, but they grow in the wizarding skills and character relationships that will pay off in later books. In The Arm of the Sphinx, Thomas Senlin leaves the Tower of Babel and literally takes to the skies in a continued effort to find his missing wife. In The Well of Ascension, the characters stay in the capital city of Luthadel, but the back alley plots and heists have morphed into front and center political machinations. What we cannot have is simply throwing the characters into another story just for the sake of seeing the characters we love so much again. They must be doing something. The deep-rooted desires that force all characters to make decisions must either be an unresolved continuation of book one or a believable, realistic extension of their original desire, but crafted in a new way. The character relationships advancing the plot must advance or deteriorate, depending on where we are in the story, but there must be movement of some sort, which naturally leads us to number three. But before we discuss number three, if this video is giving you something to think about, I'd greatly appreciate it if you could like this video so that it can spread to more story seekers like yourself. And while I'm at it, an extremely special thanks to my patrons who help make videos like this possible. Thank you so much. Back to number three. Book two absolutely must advance the character journeys in some way. We're usually not talking about physical journeys here, unlike part two, or item two, or number two, whatever you want to call the two. There's a lot of twos in this video. The characters must have unresolved deep struggles and desires that they may have made progress on in book one, but they must continue to grow in book two and beyond, if there's beyond. Even 14 books in, I'm looking at you, Wheel of Time, and no, I have not read book two yet. Truths the characters have come to accept in book one must be challenged. Desires that they are pursuing must be confronted. Goals to achieve their desires must be shaken up, new obstacles must land in their path, The skills needed to defeat those obstacles might not even be fully realized yet. Characters must learn to live differently, trust differently, grow differently, be willing to change, or be the catalyst for change that their world desperately needs. In Words of Radiance, characters must learn to trust and fight alongside entire people groups they previously despised. In Night Shadow, characters must come to terms with fighting the good fight, or hanging up their swords and leaving the rest of their lives in peace. A choice must be made. In The Two Towers, each character encounters a new obstacle, threat, or enemy that pulls them further out of their comfort zone and challenges them further than they ever thought possible. And this is where most book twos go wrong. One character may have gone on an awesome epic arc in book one only to fall stagnant in book two, regardless of epic story reveals or plot twists. But good story, always comes down to character, and the plot is only as good as the journey the characters take on that plot. And what's the best secret sauce for advancing character journeys? Well, it's something that can be relatively nebulous. Book two must advance the story's theme. When done well, theme is what the story is subconsciously trying to say through the plot and characters. Theme isn't something that writers slap onto stories, that's just some message or an agenda. Theme comes from within the very depths of the story, still crafted by the author for sure, but it's a symbolic argument that the characters wrestle with. Think Dalinar and Kaladin in The Way of Kings. If you've read book one of the Stormlight Archive, spoiler-free still, their moment together at the end of the book is a culmination of nearly 1,000 pages of theme exploration, done in a quiet yet emotionally explosive fashion. Words of Radiance expands on that relationship and the new relationships that occur as a result. So, what's the truth about book twos, the unenviable middle child of book series? Second books absolutely must live up to their predecessor while adding to and continuing the original story and characters, even if each book is technically a standalone, think like a Hercule Poirot novel. It's an incredibly unenviable position to be in for those books, and I feel for those books. But in all seriousness, a well-crafted book two has the opportunity for such great character, plot, and thematic explorations that are simply not possible in most book ones. Because book twos have a secret advantage. They have precious little to set up. Their older book sibling have taken care of that, and book two can be off to the races exploring theme and character in twisty plots in a way that book one can only dream of. Are there exceptions? Of course. But the truth is, you shouldn't fear reading book twos in a series. Don't be afraid of shattering the seeming perfection of book one. If anything, you'll gain a greater love for book one by delving deeper into the story that book two and beyond offers. I need to hear this as much as anyone. So let me know which book two is your favorite, and until next time, go seek some stories.